Welcome, everyone. Welcome to leading a cohesive and resilient remote team during COVID-19. My name is Nicole Bendeley, and I am the president of K&Co. And I think there are some of you on this webinar right now that I've had the pleasure of working with, so welcome. Now, we've been helping teams and leaders to improve performance for over 35 years. And our tools and work and workshops like these are based on over 35 years of research and experience. So everything that I'm sharing with you today, please know, is based in sound evidence and research on what it takes to be a high-performance team and what it takes to be a high-performance remote team during a time like this, during this unprecedented time where we are experiencing so much stress and unknown. And so organizations that have been using our tools and currently use our tools include the United Nations, the Federal Reserve of Chicago, here in Canada, McCain, and a number of healthcare organizations across North America as well. So this session, I know we have some healthcare organizations on with us today as well, who are, as of course, our front line to this crisis, and so are experiencing unbelievable amounts of pressure and stress. And so this session is also designed for all types of teams who are going through COVID right now from home and in isolation. And so for the past 35 years, our organization has been solely focused on asking and answering this one crucial question. What's the difference? What's the difference between teams that achieve exceptional results with ease and those that struggle to keep up? Our whole mission is to help teams and leaders thrive more, achieve better results much more easily with less struggle. And so the tools we create and the strategies and tools I'll be sharing with you today are all based on asking and answering this question over and over again for 35 years. And so today, my goal for you is to ensure you walk away with new awareness, a set of tools and strategies to help you tap into, the greatness of your team during this trying time, right? A crisis like this can either break a team down and widen any cracks in its foundation, or it can result in the emergence of true greatness. And that's my hope for you and your team. And in order for the latter to happen, you as leaders need to be armed with the right set of tools, the right strategies, the right awareness and mindset, as well as the ability to care for yourself first so that you can also care for your team. So we will also be looking at how to care for self and others through this time as well, so that you can build a greater sense of community and can build that resilience that's so needed during this time. At the end of this webinar, you will also walk away with 8 complementary tools to strengthen and develop your remote team during this time, as well as tools you can use to build your own leadership effectiveness. Now, these tools are also transferable. COVID isn't going to last forever. Fingers crossed. We will obviously get through this and return to normal. And so these tools can be used outside of crisis, right? These are tools to use to develop your team on an ongoing basis as well. So let's get started. I want to start by sharing the 3 guiding principles of leading a remote team. And these principles are really even more important during this time. So the first principle, and these principles, by the way, will be embedded throughout this session. Everything you're gaining today, these 3 principles are embedded. So the first principle is creating and applying structure. right? We have now, for most of us on this call, moved from the structure of going to the workplace, right? A routine that we have that had, past tense, that worked for each of us and our teams. And that structure in part is gone, right? And we now need to create new habits working from home with many distractions and many stressors as well, right? Many of us are caring for children, caring for family members, have other COVID-19 stressors that can be huge distractions and anxiety producing, right? Needing to create just distractions of the laundry piling up. We are working in a distracted environment right now. So the more structure we can create for ourselves and our team, the better in creating new habits. The second piece is creating a sense of community, and this is at the heart of what we're talking about today. How do we use that structure to create a sense of teamness, to create connection in a very isolating time? Those of you who are in Canada are probably in lockdown, right? The only essential services are available, and we are being encouraged not to leave our home. That's very isolating. And so having a community that we can lean on and connect with through our team is essential. And then thirdly, care and compassion. This will come through in every piece that I share with you today. Care and compassion for self and care and compassion for others as we move through this, as we adjust to a new reality in how we work together remotely and how we move through the stressors of COVID-19. Okay, so those are the three principles that underlie, that create the foundation for everything that I'm sharing with you today. Now, remember about 2 minutes ago when I said we've been asking and answering that question of what's the difference, right? What's the difference between teams that achieve exceptional results with ease and those that struggle to keep up? Well, we know through our research that yes, teams that perform exceptionally well, whether remotely or on site together, have structure, have community, and demonstrate care and compassion. And remote teams and on-site teams also demonstrate, when they perform at their best, each of these 7 elements of a high-performance team. All of our work and tools that are used by universities, in our books that are required reading at universities, are based on the foundation of these 7 elements that are based on the research we've conducted over 35 years. We know that when remote teams perform at their very best, they embody these 7 practices and make them a priority. We know that on-site teams focus on these 7 areas as well. Now, for remote teams, there are certain elements here that are even more important when we work remotely, and even more important when we work during a crisis like this one remotely. So the 2 elements that we're going to focus on today to ensure they are strong and healthy within your team so your team can thrive during this time is cohesiveness and a healthy climate. And to a degree, group work skills as well. So we will be looking at all 3 of these elements. Now, the other 4 elements, like thinking innovatively and looking at new and better ways of doing things and evolving and adjusting and being nimble, that's also essential. We just won't be diving deeply into that. Obviously, being change compatible and open and responsive to change is also essential during this time. And contributing and putting all shoulders to the wheel as team members have to adjust and switch roles sometimes and do different things so that we can support the greater good of our organization, our stakeholders, our customers, our patients. team members' contribution is essential, as well as shared leadership. We just won't be doing a deep dive into those 4 areas because we just don't have the time, but they are essential. And so one of the tools that I'll be sharing with you at the end is a tool to be able to create a focus within your team, a dialogue within your team around which element is most important to your team right now and what do we need to do to strengthen it. For today, though, we will do a deep dive into cohesiveness, building a healthy climate, and strengthening our group work skills so that we can thrive more easily right now as we shift into working remotely. Okay, so let's begin. Let's begin then with looking at cohesiveness. So cohesiveness, a highly cohesive team, especially now a highly cohesive remote team, is very clear on where they're going and how they're going to get there. High performance teams are consistently reaching as high as they possibly can towards their goals, no matter what gets thrown at them. They are fanatically focused on achieving their goals, on reaching success. But in order to be fanatically focused, in order to pull together in the same direction towards our common goal, we need to be very clear around what that goal is and how we're going to work together to achieve that goal. And things have shifted, right? Your goals may be different today than they were 3 weeks ago or even yesterday. Things are moving so quickly, and this pace of change affects the goals that perhaps affects the goals that our teams are in place to achieve. And the way in which we achieve our goals are a little bit different now, given that we are working differently remotely. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and I would like you to really think about whether you know clearly and unequivocally what the answer is to each of these questions, and whether your remote team will know the answer to these questions, and how quickly you are able to answer these questions. All right? Because this will tell you to the degree to which you are cohesive right now. So these questions are very important for you and your remote team. So the first question, what does success look like for your team right now? Does success look differently now, given the current situation, than it did yesterday or 2 weeks ago or a month ago? What is your team reaching for? What is the overarching common goal of your team? Have your KPIs shifted? Have your, service level agreements changed? Do you now need to include team well-being and health and resilience into how you define success? Have standards changed? Have expectations changed? What does success look like right now for your team? Is it different? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's the same. But your team, even if it's the same, your teams may be wondering, is it the same or is it different? So if you don't have a clear picture in your head as the leader of what success looks like for your team right now, then you can bet your team members don't know what that success looks like either. And as a result, people will be pulling in different directions, right? We will be focused perhaps on tasks and issues that won't lead us where we need to go, what's most important right now for our team, for our patients, for our stakeholders, our customers, and for our team members. The next question I have for you is, what are your team's top 3 priorities right now for achieving this success during this crisis? Priorities have likely shifted, okay? Is your team clear on the overarching team priorities? So for example, is safety a priority right now? Is team well-being and mental health and resiliency a priority right now? Quality, is that a priority right now? Is innovation still a priority for you? It might be. What are the most important priorities right now? Overarching, I don't mean initiatives, I mean overarching priorities, areas of focus. Some priorities may have had to be put on the back burner for now as we shift focus. Again, if it took you a while to answer this question, or if you're still trying to figure that out, your team won't know what it is, what they are either. And part of being cohesive and pulling in the same direction is knowing where you're going and what you're reaching for, and what must take priority so we can make the best decisions right now. We can assign projects and know where to focus our attention and our resources right now to align with those priorities. And then finally, the third question is, which behaviors and practices are most important right now, are most important to your team's effectiveness during this crisis and as a result of working remotely? We need to focus on different practices and behaviors right now. We need to amplify certain ones that we may not have had to have amplified a month ago. And we're going to look at some of those. But really think about, for you and your team, and every one of you on this call, your team will have a different set of behaviors and practices than another leader's team on this call. Because you will all have different needs. Your teams are unique. There may be similar ones about well-being and care, but there will be some unique ones. So it's essential that in order to pull together in the same direction, your team is clear on those behaviors and practices that they need to hold themselves and one another accountable to and really commit to support each other, to build community, to care for each other, and to be fanatically focused on achieving success during this time. So how do you do this? So now I'm going to share, a couple of strategies with you to get clear in these ways. So the first recommendation is to hold a team reset meeting. And this is a really powerful way to have your team take a deep breath. I need to do that myself right now. Take a deep breath collectively and reset in this new environment, in this new reality we are, and to begin to build a greater sense of team and to identify how we're going to pull together in the same direction by clarifying where we're going and how we're going to get there. So with a team reset meeting, and by the way, I should say you'll all get a copy of these slides, okay? I'll send these to you after this session, and I'm also recording this session. So I'll send you the recording so you can share with your coworkers, okay? So acknowledge the current state. This is a way to build community, to show you care, by bringing your team together to reset and just acknowledge the stress and overwhelm people are feeling. When I do check-ins with team members and teams that I work with, when I ask people to share one word to describe how they're feeling, and we often do that at the beginning of a meeting, I hear a gamut of different feelings, depending on the day. People might say they're feeling stretched, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling rushed, they're feeling distracted, they're scared, they're unsure, they're exhausted. And others on that same call in that same moment may be feeling hopeful, energized, focused, optimistic, right? There is a gamut of different feelings in one moment at the beginning of a call with a group of 10 people. And that just tells us the kind of flux we are in right now as a society, in our, in our own personal lives, certainly at work, and they all combine and affect each other as we come together to work. And so it's really essential to acknowledge the current state we are in, a state of flux, a state of unknown, a state of great pressure and isolation. And there's also amazing things that come from this when teams lean in, and that hope from we're pulling together all shoulders from the wheel to the wheel, and we're doing our best for our stakeholders, for our patients, for our clients. So it creates some positive energy as well. So acknowledge the current state that people are in. This team reset meeting, use it to define what success looks like for your team. Ask your team, what does success look like for us right now? We may not know when we're going, we may not have an endpoint for this. We may not know right now when we will be able to go back to our offices and return to our previous structure and routine and normalcy. So what does success look like for us right now? What's different? What's changed? What are we now working towards? As the leader, come prepared with your version of success, how you define it, because they're going to want to hear from you. But it's so important to first ask your team members how they would define it, what they think success looks like right now. That's how we build connection to this new vision. And then ask them to identify what they believe the team's top priorities are right now, given where we're going. So get very clear in this reset meeting around where the team is going, what are our goals and objectives right now, what are our key priorities for getting there, and how are we going to align ourselves? Do we need to adjust our work, etc.? So take time to get clear on the what and the how. This is also a time, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, to clarify expectations. The way we used to work is on hold right now. We are now working in a new way, and therefore we have different expectations of one another. And some people may not have even shared what they need from one another, or your team may not have taken the time to even talk about what's the best way to communicate. How often should we meet? What do we need from each other? How are we going to practice self-care? So it's time to clarify expectations. And it's time to develop some new team norms. And those of you who have worked with me and K&Co know how passionate I am about team agreements. So we'll be sharing that with you in a little bit. So let's start with the importance of clarifying expectations during your team reset meeting. Now, this team reset meeting can be an hour, it can be 2 hours, or you might want to chunk it and do multiple sessions and tackle acknowledging the current state and clarifying expectations in one, and then moving to setting goals in another. You can break it up however you want for your team. At the end of the day, though, this is a must-have. This is not a nice-to-have meeting. This is a must-have meeting or sets of meetings. This will, like I said at the beginning, make or break your team. The way in which we form a team, and really you are reforming your team in this new era, in this new way of working. The way we form a team has a direct impact on how that team works, on the success of that team. And so this is a non-negotiable. And also, if this is a lot for you as a leader right now to create, I know leaders' shoulders are broad. And in crisis times, we look to our leaders, and we're looking to you now. And so if this is just too much to add to your plate, seek out support to do this. And we certainly can do this on your behalf as well. One of our new sessions is leading team reset, virtual team reset sessions on behalf of the teams that we support. So happy to offer that to you as well. Okay, so clarifying expectations. It is important to get clear on basics. Asking questions in this team reset meeting around how will we communicate together? This is a time, people, to over communicate. This isn't a time to pull back on communication. We want to over communicate when we are working remotely like this and in isolation. We want to make sure there is daily connection between team members, between you and team members. We want to ensure everybody is in the loop and doesn't feel disconnected and left out of important information on what's happening. Even if it's a note or a message or a text or an email or a call to say, you know what, nothing's happening yet. I don't have any other information. I just want to let you know. Communicate that there's nothing to communicate is also important. Asking questions like, how can we best support each other through this, right? Some people will have different needs. Some people will really, really miss the collaboration and the impromptu coffees and that sense of camaraderie that we have in the office. Some people will really miss that. So how can we create that? How can we support each other? What might people need? Some people might have kids at home, right? So should we be scheduling our team meetings at different times to allow for young kids in the morning? Maybe we can't meet at 8 a.m. because we're getting our kids breakfast, right? So what do we need from one another to be our best selves? How will we keep a sense of community? How can we create impromptu gatherings and check-ins and virtual coffee talks, right? What does that look like to us? What's most important to us in community with our team? And then as a leader, it is so important to pause and ask, and I would ask this even not just in your reset meeting, at every team meeting. What do you need from me? What do you need from me? How can I help you? What do you need from each other? That sort of goes along with how can we best support each other? And how will we maintain well-being? This is a really important question because working from home is hard. Work doesn't leave you, right? You can easily, if you're prone to this, become work all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. You can't leave your work at work because now work's at home. So how do we maintain well-being? What are some best practices that team members want to share or you share with the team? And I'll share some of them with you today. Okay, so clarify expectations during your team reset meeting, as well as on an ongoing basis. Ask these kinds of questions to make sure everybody has the opportunity to express what they need. So team agreements. This is a way to develop new team norms. This is a way in your reset meeting to identify those behaviors and practices that are most important to your team right now, working remotely. So they also act as a way to clarify expectations again, and they will evolve. So while some teams will have a team charter, for example, and a set of quote-unquote team rules, these team agreements are developed by your team, and like I said, I'm going to repeat it, they define the most important behaviors and practices right now. Given what success looks like for your team, what you're working towards, and how you want to work together during this time. So I want to share with you a set of team agreements that a team I work with has recently developed. So in order to develop these agreements, and by the way, you'll have a tool at the end to use with your team to develop these agreements, okay? You're asking your team in your team reset meeting, in order to be the best possible team during this crisis, we need to do what? Ask your team this. Ask your team just to take a few minutes of quiet reflection and to each person jot down some ideas. And then ideally, by the way, you are on a web video conference like Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever software you're using, Skype, and this is being done virtually and people can see each other ideally, okay? So have people jot down a couple of things and then go around and ask each person to share one behavior or practice at a time. And then you, the leader, can capture them. And at the end, come to agreement on about 5 to 7 of the most important ones that the team feels are essential right now. So here's an example. We agree to have daily team check-ins, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. We agree to be patient with each other and with ourselves. Patience is required right now for each other, okay? It's really, really important. We're going through a lot of adjustment right now. We agree to be proactive, to reach out and offer help when we have the capacity to do so. We agree to over-communicate, which you and we just talked about. We agree to ask for help when we need it. And some people, this is an important agreement for this one team that developed it. This may not be important for your teams, depending on your team, but the asking for help, this came out with this team because there were a couple of people who don't feel comfortable asking for help, right? And that's very common. I struggle with asking for help myself. And so it was something that the team really wanted to call out and acknowledge that we need to be able to ask for help in this time that we're working in. And we also, this team identified the need to use team meetings really well, actively participate, and use the time together to ask questions, share concerns, share ideas, and communicate. And it requires everybody participating in team meetings. So these agreements then shape how your team agrees to work together. And this is a living, breathing document for you to check in on maybe once a week in your team meeting to say, how are we doing with these? What's working really well? Where do we need to recommit to? Or are we missing anything? Okay, this creates a focus on how we're going to work together and aligns people to the best practices. And it's developed by your team. Okay, so that's the reset meeting. In the reset meeting, you're getting clear on your goals, your priorities, you're clarifying expectations, you're developing team agreements, and you're importantly acknowledging the current state. And again, if you need support in this, these virtual sessions, team reset sessions, are what we do. And so we're happy to support you in designing and leading that on your behalf. Now, the next piece of leading a cohesive remote team is scheduling daily, yes, I said daily team check-ins, okay? And I know you are all likely incredibly busy. And from personal experience, I have to tell you that these daily check-ins that I am having with a team that I'm working with every morning from 9 to 9:30 set the day, set the tone, create community, connect people, and help the team get focused on where we're at and where we need to go today and this week and this month. And it builds that calm, it builds that community, and it builds that focus. So these regular team check-ins can be 15 minutes, can be a half an hour. They don't need to be an hour. And for this team that I have daily check-ins with, our goal was a half an hour, but last week it was closer to about 45 minutes to an hour every day because we had so much to get through. It was so new. Our priorities had changed. Our roles were shifting. There was a lot more to talk about every morning. And we were just getting into this groove of working differently. Now, a week and a half in, they're 25 to 30 minutes, and we've got a great rhythm going. So it will take time to adjust to this rhythm, but it actually happens quickly. And these check-ins are invaluable. So some ideas for your daily check-in is, and these can go really quickly once you get in the rhythm, is start with a one-word check-in. And this is what this one team and I do every morning as we go around, and I gave you an example before, and ask people to share one word about how they're feeling right now. It's just sharing the word. We're not, and you go around and everybody shares that word that describes how they're feeling. We don't do a deep dive into why people are feeling that way. We don't talk about the why or try to solve each other's challenges. It's just a moment to check in and get a sense of where people are at. So if I know that Sarah is feeling incredibly overwhelmed, that's her word, overwhelmed, I may not then call her 5 minutes later and say, hey, I've got these other 3 tasks I need you to do right now. Or if those 3 tasks are urgent, I would have a conversation with Sarah around how we can best manage these tasks given how she's feeling right now. Okay? It's also a way for just people to connect and acknowledge where people are at. And it lets people, your team members, know that everybody really cares about where they're at. It's a caring practice. We then follow up that with a quick mindfulness practice, and you can Google mindfulness team practices. We do some breathing exercises, taking 3 deep breaths to reset, build some calm and focus, and be able to focus on provide our attention to one another in that meeting. Then you can ask some different questions, right? So what's working right now? What's not working? What concerns do you have? What's unclear right now? Are there any issues anybody needs to raise right now? This then opens it up to focusing on what do we need to address right now. Another topic that's really helpful during this disconnected time is what's the word on the street, right? Because in our offices, you could go down to other departments, you pass people in the hall, you get a sense of where your stakeholders or other partners or other teams are at, or where patients are at, where customers are at, how they're feeling. And we're disconnected that. We don't have our spidey senses right now as easily. And so asking each other, what are you hearing? Is there anything we should know that you're hearing about? How is this team doing? Or how is this group doing? Asking the word on the street, anything we need to know. Then take time to ask, are there any updates on team priorities that anybody wants to share? That may or may not, depending on the day. You may choose to check in on the team agreements. How are we doing living up to these? And the last piece, I call it happy hour. And this is inject some fun, inject lightheartedness, right? Share a video, do a riddle, share a joke, share happy stories. What's the good news out there, right? I love ending on what's the good news? What good news? It could be this morning, a colleague's son got into the university of their choice, right? That was great news that we wanted to hear, right? So it could be personal happy news. It could be news about the state of the organization or the team. So share happy thoughts and things together, especially now. So that's your 30-minute check-in. I urge you to get into the habit of having these every day with your team. They have an unbelievable impact. And then finally, with cohesiveness, structure, structure, structure. This also speaks to group work skills, which is another element of the 7 elements of a high-performance team. The way you structure your meetings, whether it's your team meetings or meetings with cross-functional teams, the way you structure your meeting will have a direct impact on your team members' ability to go out and do the work. And working virtually, whether it's via Zoom or on a teleconference, makes structure even more important. So what I'm sharing with you as part of the team tools you'll get at the end of this is actually an agenda that we call the Vital Agenda, and it creates a strong structure for your meeting that will enable people to stay focused, that will ensure you're spending your time on the most important topics, that will ensure people are ready to participate and contribute in that team meeting, and will ensure people are walking away from your team meetings knowing what's expected of them. So you're going to get a tool to build your objective, create dialogue, better decision making, ensure participation, and recap. It's your agenda template. I'm not going to spend any more time on meeting effectiveness, but if you go to kn.co on your screen, there's also a complimentary webinar on how to lead an effective team meeting that applies also to remote teams. So you'll have all of the content you need there in that webinar to structure your meetings. So remember, structure, structure, structure. Okay. All right. Let's move on, right, from cohesiveness. We've just outlined all of these areas for you on how to build a cohesive team. Now we're moving into the next element, which is a healthy team climate. Right? A healthy team climate is the foundation of a high-performance team, period. If we do not have a healthy team climate, regardless of whether we're working remotely or not, if we do not have a healthy team climate, we cannot be cohesive. We cannot share leadership. We cannot be innovative, right? We cannot manage change well. This is the foundation of a high-performance team, and our team climate is being shaken right now. It's being rocked, given this pandemic. People are tired. Morale is probably low. People are scared. And it's when we're in this state of unknown and fear and emotional exhaustion, quite frankly, and for many physical exhaustion as well, it's difficult to bring our best selves all the time. And so creating this healthy climate to surround ourselves in, to trust in, and to energize and lift people up is so important right now. So a healthy climate is one based on mutual respect, trust, and well-being, where team members can be their best selves and feel free to be their best selves. They feel comfortable asking questions, sharing concerns, being vulnerable, letting people know they're feeling overwhelmed and need help. And it's one where we support each other through that. Okay, so let's look at how to build that healthy team climate and your role in that specifically as a leader. So the team reset meeting and your team check-ins also fuel a healthy climate, and your team agreements are essential. So if you don't have any team agreements that really speak to how people are supporting one another and building well-being, then I would suggest them as the leader, okay, to make sure that the team climate is also top of mind. So the foundations of a healthy climate, in particular during COVID and leading a remote team, is all about care and compassion. And in particular, caring for yourself and caring for others as the leader. So let's look at this from a caring for others perspective. And I'm actually going to back up a bit on this slide, and I'm going to share a story with you to highlight the importance of trust and care. So this is a story, you may have heard this from me before, but this is a story of a famous tightrope walker from years and years and years ago, and he was known for walking across Niagara Falls on a tightrope. And he's so famous that I've completely forgotten his name, but we'll call him the famous tightrope walker for now. So there's a story about this famous tightrope walker when he was doing one of the biggest feats of his career, walking across Niagara Falls. I think it was one of the first times he had done it. But unfortunately on this day, it was windy and blustering and rainy, and the weather was just terrible. It was incredibly dangerous. But he chose to walk across this tightrope across Niagara Falls during this bad weather. And he made it. He made it to the other side. And on the other side waiting for him was his #1 fan. His #1 fan was so excited, was so happy, was jumping up and down and saying, I knew you could do it. I had every faith in the world that you would make it across safely. And his #1 fan paused and said, now will you do it again? But only just take this wheelbarrow across with you next time. And the tightrope walker looked at his #1 fan and said, you want me to do this again? I barely made it across the first time, but you want me to do it again with this wheelbarrow? Yes, said his #1 fan, I know you can do it. The tightrope walker said, are you sure? You really trust and believe I can do this? And his #1 fan said, yes, absolutely. So the tightrope walker said, okay, get in. So your teams are being asked right now to walk a tightrope. Your team members are walking through a storm right now. And they're looking to you to lead them safely across. And in order for them to get in your wheelbarrow with you and cross through along this tightrope through the storm, they need to trust that you trust them. In order for them to trust you, they need to know that you also trust them. That's a big part of building trust. They also need to trust that you care about their well-being and the well-being of the team. So let's start by looking at how you can show that you trust your team. So first of all, give your team members autonomy to do their work and trust that they will get the work done. I have a lot of questions from leaders now, and they're very valid questions, like how can I be sure people are going to be productive, right? How can I make sure people are actually working from home and doing the work? And my first response is always, you know, your team members are the same team members today as they were last week when they were working in the office, or 2 weeks ago when they were working in the office. They are the same people. And if you trusted their work ethics then, trust them now. And know that there is an adjustment period, and we need to allow for that period of adjustment. Not only adjustment to working from home, but there's a lot happening in our personal lives. So give people space, give people the autonomy to do their work, and trust that the work will get done. And this might be a stretch for some leaders who tend to micromanage and feel more comfortable being able to see the work being done. This is a time for, if you're one of those people, to step outside your comfort zone, take a deep breath, and let go a little bit. And find ways to stay in the loop, right? If you want to stay on top of certain things, what's most important to stay on top of, and how will you do that with certain team members or with the team? So what's the structure and process that will work for you and your team members in this environment? That might look different for different team members, okay? Now is also the time to engage them more in decision making, right? This is the over-communicate time. Show trust and care by sharing decisions with them, letting them know your thinking behind certain problems and solutions. Bring them together to participate and ask them for their ideas. Involve them in problem solving. That's how you build trust and engagement. And as the leader, be vulnerable. Share during your check-ins. There's nothing more powerful than hearing leaders be vulnerable and share, you know, I'm exhausted and I'm doing the best I can, but I'm really tired, or I'm worried. I know we're going to get through this, but today I'm just feeling a little worried. So it's okay. It's actually essential now, especially to lean into vulnerability as a leader and be transparent. Okay. And then look for opportunities to show you care about individuals, about the team. Check in, right? Reach out for a virtual coffee just to chat, not about an update or a download on a project, just to connect. Send a text message saying, how are you doing? Do you need anything, right? Send a funny, video to somebody to put a smile on their face. Ask how people are doing, reach out and connect, let them know you're there, let them know how they can reach you. And please take time to recognize and appreciate all the amazing work that's happening right now. There is so much stress right now, but I am blown away every day by the commitment, by the courage, by the passion people are showing every single day, even just to get up and go and sit at their desks to do their job at their desks, surrounded by, in their dining room, right? Surrounded by kids or other family members and distractions and the unknown. There are beautiful things happening right now and people going the extra mile for one another. Recognize and appreciate all of that. Find little things to recognize and appreciate every day in your team members. Ensure your team members have what they need to work from home. Does everybody have access to the internet? If not, how are you going to work with them, right? Does everybody have a laptop? What do people need? And please encourage breaks and self-care and mindfulness, which is our next piece around practicing and modeling self-care. You as the leader, this is an unselfish act, okay? Practicing self-care, putting the oxygen mask on yourself first is a selfless act, because unless you are well, you will not be able to lead your team. And modeling self-care and seeing our leaders practice it is really important in building resilience and self-care and well-being within the team. Okay? So be aware of your expectations of your team and the messages you're sending. You're sending emails late at night. You're setting the expectation that you expect your team members to work late at night. You may be the kind of leader who just wants to get things off their chest and you like to work late at night. Great, write the email, but schedule it to go out the next morning at 8 as opposed to 2 in the morning, or midnight, or 11, or 9, or 7 during dinner, right? Okay? Encourage others to ask for help, and you model that. Focus on things that are within your control and encourage your team members to do the same. I encourage you to reach out to a coach or a mentor. Have a support that's just for you, to act as a sounding board where you can unload and get advice, or just have somebody to listen. And search for some mindfulness at work videos. There are a number of them on YouTube, and share them with your team. Please practice self-care. It is essential right now. Physical, emotional, social, and spiritual self-care. And like I said in one of our check-ins for our team, every morning we do a check-in, one word, and we do a mindfulness breathing exercise to reset and ground ourselves in some calm and focus. That's a great way a great tool or strategy or technique to embed in your daily meetings. So we've gone through a lot in a very short period of time. All right, you will be getting a copy of these slides. This workshop has been recorded, so you'll be able to watch this over and over and over again if you want to, and share it with your colleagues. And remember, we are here to help. I'm going to share your tools with you in a second. We are here to help you. We can lead and design your virtual team reset sessions. It can be as little as an hour. It can be 2 hours. Assess your team. Do a quick team check-in. Have your team assess themselves on the 7 elements. Use the team fitness assessment. How are we doing with our climate? How are we doing with our cohesiveness? Check in so that you and your leader, you and your team can use this assessment to gauge where you're at now and where you need to shift to thrive more. And then should you be looking for a coach to support you through this, we do offer leadership coaching, and in particular through this crisis, we are offering also some, obviously virtual coaching, but different types of coaching to help people through this. So your tools, your free team tools can be found on our website, kn.co/team-tools. And I'll just show them to you here. Okay, you'll find on this website, oh, I need to share a different screen, I think. But you'll see on this website, okay, you'll have the 7 elements of a high performance team for to use with your team. It's an exercise to walk your team through to focus on improving in certain areas and celebrating strengths. We also have 7 elements designed specifically for healthcare teams, okay? So we do a lot of work in healthcare. We have a separate set of tools and resources designed specifically for healthcare teams based on our research in healthcare team performance and patient safety. You have a tool for developing team agreements. You have your vital agenda. You have a tool to check your team's climate and the degree of health of your team's climate, as well as additional tools I've put on here to strengthen your team. 4 additional tools to help you lead your team now and into the future. Okay, so I appreciate your time so very much. I wish you and your team much health, much tranquility. And I am here for you. If you have any questions or need any support, please feel free. I'm always happy to engage in a conversation. Please feel free to reach out. I'm here to help you, and I wish you all the very best. Take good care.